The vast stars stretched endlessly, silent witnesses to countless journeys and forgotten tales. For a century, the Celestari Empire believed their beloved Princess Elenia was lost forever. She had vanished on a mission of peace, traveling beyond the Empire's borders to seek allies in dangerous regions. The expedition never returned. The Empire mourned, then moved on, burying her memory beneath new rulers, wars, and ambitions. Yet on a quiet day, when the gates of the capital station hung open to trade ships and merchants, a single vessel emerged from the void. It was battered, scarred by years of drifting, its engines sputtering weak light. Dockworkers stared in disbelief as the royal insignia of the missing princess shimmered faintly across its hull. Word spread quickly, and soon the station's high council and thousands of citizens gathered to see what miracle had arrived. The air was heavy with anticipation as the ramp lowered. Out stepped Princess Elenia, her once radiant armor dulled with age and hardship. Her silver hair, once braided in jewels, now hung loose and tangled. The long cloak of her house was torn and frayed at the edges. But what captured every gaze was not her return alone. It was the fragile bundle in her arms. She carried a small infant, a human baby, wrapped in plain cloth. The princess walked slowly, each step heavy, her eyes fixed on the child as though it were the most precious being in the galaxy. When she finally looked up at her people, her eyes shimmered not with triumph but with deep sorrow. It silenced the crowd more than any grand speech could. "By the stars," whispered an old merchant. "Is that a human?" The word rippled across the gathering. Humans were a name from stories, spoken with pity or contempt. Once they had lived on a blue planet called Earth, but the world was destroyed in a great war. Some claimed fragments of humanity wandered the stars, but no proof had ever surfaced. To most, humans were extinct. The royal council hurried forward. High Chancellor Mivarin, a stern man of calculated words, bowed deeply before the princess. "Your Highness," he said carefully, "our hearts rejoice at your return. The Empire believed you lost, but—" His eyes shifted uneasily toward the infant. "Why do you carry that creature? Where is your fleet? Where are the allies you swore to bring back to us?" Elenia clutched the baby tighter. The child stirred, letting out a soft cry, and she hushed him gently, her expression softening with a tenderness few had seen from her before. Only then did she answer, her voice quiet but firm. "I returned with what remains of a promise," she said. "This child is all that survived." Her words confused many, and whispers broke out among the council. Some murmured about weakness, others about danger. A princess was supposed to return with victories, not burdens. Mivarin raised a hand, silencing the crowd. "You must explain, Princess. A century has passed. The Empire endured wars in your absence, and now you appear carrying a human child. Our people deserve to know why." Elenia's gaze hardened. "They will know, but not here, not before every curious ear. First I will see this child safe." Her refusal stung the council, but the sorrow in her eyes made even her critics hesitate. The guards, unsure whether to follow the council or their long-lost princess, allowed her to pass. She walked through the familiar halls of the capital station, though to her they seemed colder now, more rigid and filled with shadows of distrust. When she entered her old chambers, dust rose from the long-forgotten tapestries. Everything was as she had left it, preserved by servants who never stopped believing she would return. She laid the child gently upon her bed, smoothing the cloth around him. For a moment she let herself breathe. The baby's small hand reached up, gripping her finger with surprising strength. Her sorrow deepened, for in that tiny gesture lived the memory of all she had lost. She whispered softly in the child's ear, words only he would hear, promises of safety and love, though her heart ached with doubt. Not long after, a familiar face entered quietly. Captain Rail, once her protector and closest friend, had grown older in her absence, his once dark hair now streaked with gray. He stopped in shock at the sight of her, then bowed, his voice trembling. "Elenia, it is you. I thought the void had taken you." She gave a faint smile. "It nearly did. But the stars guided me back." She gestured to the child, and they placed him in my arms. Rail approached slowly, peering down at the infant. His eyes widened. "A human. I thought they were gone." "They are not gone," Elenia replied softly. "Not completely. Scattered, hunted, surviving in broken places. I found them, and I failed them. This child is all that remains of the ones who trusted me." Rail placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did not fail. You returned. That alone is hope. But Alenia shook her head. Hope is fragile, Rael. The council already plots. I saw their eyes. They see danger in him. They will try to take him from me. Rael frowned. Then you must tell them everything. Let them understand. She looked at the child again, her sorrow giving way to quiet resolve. I will, but not yet. First, I must know that he will live, that he will not be used or cast aside. He is not a weapon, not a symbol. He is a child. Meanwhile, outside her chambers, the council argued fiercely. Some demanded the child be taken at once for study, to uncover why a princess would carry such a burden home. Others, however, feared the omen of humanity's return, worrying it would bring unrest among the citizens. Only a few voices spoke of compassion, suggesting that if the princess had risked everything to save this infant, perhaps there was more to his story. That night, as the station lights dimmed and the corridors grew quiet, Alenia sat by the window gazing at the endless stars. The child slept peacefully beside her, his tiny breath steady. She thought of the countless faces she had left behind, of the human families who had welcomed her when she was lost, who had believed in her promise of safety. She remembered the fires, the screams, the merciless raiders who hunted them like animals. She remembered how the humans fought desperately, refusing to surrender even as their numbers fell. In the end, only this baby had survived. She had taken him into her arms amidst the ashes and sworn an oath. She would protect him, not as a princess fulfilling duty, but as a woman honoring the last wish of a dying people. Her eyes filled with sorrow as she whispered again, "You are not alone. Not anymore. I will not let them take you." Far away, unseen by her or the council, silent signals traveled through the void. Others had seen her return. Others knew the child lived. And in the darkness beyond the empire, forces stirred, waiting for the moment to strike. But for now, in that chamber filled with memory and grief, the princess sat with the child in her arms, the weight of a century pressing upon her. Her sorrow was deep, but within it a quiet flame flickered, the fragile beginning of a story that would change the galaxy. The next morning came slowly, the capital station glowing with soft light as though the walls themselves were trying to forget the arguments of the night before. Princess Alenia had not slept. She had stayed awake, watching over the human child, listening to his soft breathing, fearing that if she closed her eyes, someone would come and take him away. When dawn arrived, Captain Rael returned, his expression grave. He had spoken with members of the council and knew their hearts were not united. Some wanted to question Alenia immediately, demanding answers for her century-long absence. Others whispered about seizing the child under the excuse of protection. They will not wait much longer, Rael warned her quietly. If you do not speak, they will act. And if they act, it will not be with kindness. Alenia nodded, though her hands tightened around the child's blanket. She had known this moment would come. She would have to share her story, though every word would bring back memories she wished she could bury. But if she remained silent, the child would be lost, and humanity's last spark would be crushed. That evening, the council gathered in the great chamber, its ceiling stretching high into the dome of the station. The banners of the empire hung on every wall, symbols of power and order. Hundreds of citizens filled the balconies, eager to witness the return of their lost princess. The child was hidden in her arms, wrapped so tightly that few could even see his small face. Chancellor Mivaran stood first, his voice echoing across the chamber. Princess Alenia, you vanished for 100 years. You were sent to find allies for our empire, yet you return with no fleet, no army, and no treaty. Instead, you bring a human infant, a species thought extinct. The empire deserves to know why, the crowd murmured. Some leaned forward in curiosity. Others crossed their arms in doubt. Alenia rose slowly, her silver hair catching the chamber's light. She did not raise her voice, but when she spoke, every corner of the room fell silent. I did not abandon my mission, she said. I traveled far beyond our borders. I found worlds of dust and ruins, broken stations where survivors lived like shadows, and among those shadows I found them. Humans. A ripple of disbelief moved through the chamber. Some scoffed openly, others leaned closer in fascination. They are not myths, Alenia continued. They were scattered across the stars, living in small groups, hiding from those who would destroy them. When I arrived, they did not turn me away. They welcomed me, though I was a stranger. They believed in me when I promised to bring them safety. I lived among them for many years. I learned their stories, their pain, their hope. And I watched as raiders hunted them, as disease and hunger broke them, as enemies tried to erase the last trace of who they were. Her voice faltered, and for a moment she looked down at the child in her arms. He stirred and she pressed him gently to her heart. In the end, she whispered, I could not save them. Their numbers fell until there were none left but him. This child is all that remains of the people who trusted me. The chamber erupted with noise. Some shouted in disbelief, others gasped in horror, while a few cried out in pity. The idea that an entire species had died while their princess lived among them struck deep into the hearts of many. Mivarin lifted his hand, his tone sharp. You claim this child is the last of his kind. But if humans were hunted, then they were weak. Why should we risk our empire to shelter a dying race? Why bring danger into our walls for the sake of one infant? Alenya's sorrow sharpened into fire. She raised her voice stronger now. You speak of weakness? Then you know nothing of humanity. They fought against the void with nothing but their hands. They endured when every world turned against them. They survived when no one came to help. Weakness? No, they were stronger than we ever imagined. This child carries that strength. If we protect him, we honor their memory. If we cast him aside, we become no better than the raiders who hunted them. The citizens in the balconies murmured louder. Some began nodding, moved by her words, while others remained skeptical. The council sat in silence, their faces a mix of doubt and calculation. Then, from the far end of the chamber, an old man rose. His name was Admiral Corin, once a commander in the wars of the past. His voice trembled, but it carried weight. I fought beside humans, he said, long ago before their world burned. I saw them stand against enemies 3 times their number. They were reckless, yes, but they were brave. I watched them bleed for us. I will not call them weak. The chamber fell silent again. His words added strength to Alenya's plea, and for a moment it seemed the council might soften. But Mivarin's eyes narrowed and he spoke once more. Even if your words are true, Princess, this child is still dangerous. Already whispers spread among the people. They say the boy is an omen, that he will bring old wars back to our gates. Some claim he should be studied, to see if humanity holds secrets we can use. Others demand he be exiled, so the empire will not be burdened. Tell me, Princess, do you truly believe you alone can protect him? Alenya's hands trembled, but she lifted the child higher, letting the citizens see his small, sleeping face. I am not alone, she said firmly. If there are any among you who still believe in compassion, who still believe in honor, then you will stand with me. This child is not an omen of destruction. He is a promise. The promise that even in the darkest night, life endures. The crowd erupted again, louder this time. Some shouted in support, others in anger. The council members looked uneasy, their control slipping as the citizens debated fiercely among themselves. Seeing the storm she had stirred, Alenya turned and walked from the chamber, refusing to hear more. She had said what she needed to say. Now she would wait to see who truly stood with her. That night, Rael entered her chamber once again. His expression was grim. The council will not decide quickly. Some believe you. Others want the child taken. You have made allies, but you have also made enemies. Alenya stroked the baby's head softly. Then we must be ready. If they come for him, we cannot let them succeed. Rael hesitated, then leaned closer. There is more. Strange things have been reported. Machines in the lower docks flickered when the child passed near. Old relics hummed as though awakened. Some believe it is only coincidence. But others, they think the child carries something unusual, something beyond flesh and blood. Alenya froze, staring at the infant in her arms. His face was peaceful, innocent. But she remembered moments when lights had flickered, when doors opened without touch, when the air itself seemed to stir. Whatever he is, she whispered, he is still a child, and I will protect him. Outside the station's walls, far beyond the stars, other eyes watched. Silent ships drifted in the void, cloaked and waiting. They had followed Alenya's broken vessel across light years. They had seen her carry the last human, and they would not let him live without challenge. For now, the princess held the child close, unaware of the storm gathering in the darkness. The empire's future trembled on the edge of a choice, compassion or fear, hope or destruction. And in her sorrowful eyes, a fragile spark of defiance burned brighter than ever. The quiet of the night was broken by distant echoes of alarms. Princess Alenya awoke instantly, the baby still resting against her chest. The room vibrated slightly as warning lights flickered through the windows. She held the child close and rose carefully, her silver hair falling across her face. Captain Rail appeared in the doorway, his expression tight with urgency. "They've moved faster than we expected," he said. "A faction in the council has sent soldiers to the residential halls. They want to seize the child before we can escape." Elenia's heart pounded, but she did not panic. She had prepared for this, though she had hoped it would not come so soon. "We cannot let them take him," she said firmly. "Not now, not ever. We leave tonight." Together they moved through hidden passages she had used long ago as a child, secret corridors designed for emergencies, many forgotten by the current rulers. The baby stirred but did not cry, as if sensing the urgency and the strength in Elenia's resolve. Outside, the station was alive with tension. Guards moved in formation, but so did citizens who had chosen to stand with the princess. Word of her return had already inspired loyalty among those who remembered her kindness and leadership. They were not soldiers, but they were determined, and their numbers surprised even the council. Elenia emerged into the lower corridors, where cargo containers and maintenance areas formed a maze of steel and shadow. Rael led the way, guiding her to a small docking bay hidden from the main gates. A shuttle awaited, ready for departure. Its engines hummed softly as if aware of the mission ahead. "Once we leave," Rael said, "we must head to the fringe worlds. There we can find allies who will not judge a human child, who will help us protect him." Elenia nodded. She adjusted the blanket around the baby and whispered, "We will be safe soon, little one. Just hold on." The shuttle lifted from the station in silence, threading its way past the defense turrets and patrolling drones. From above, the Empire looked vast and unyielding, but to Elenia, it was only another obstacle she was determined to overcome. During the flight, she finally spoke of the humans she had found. They were scattered, hiding in abandoned stations and derelict ships. Some tried to rebuild, but most were hunted by raiders and rival species. They trusted me, though I was not one of them. I promised to bring them safety. I promised that no one would harm them again. Her voice grew quieter, filled with memories that weighed heavily, but I could not keep that promise fully. Only this one survived. The baby stirred, opening his eyes briefly. They were wide, dark, and alert, showing an intelligence that surprised even Elenia. He looked at her and then at Rael, and for a moment the world outside seemed to pause. Rael leaned closer. "Do you think he understands?" he asked quietly. Elenia smiled faintly. "Perhaps not in words, but in ways we cannot measure yet. He has survived where many would have perished. That alone speaks volumes." As the shuttle traveled deeper into uncharted space, they encountered other signs of danger. Strange signals flickered on the scanners, remnants of old fleets and unknown crafts drifting silently. Some moved toward them, but none approached directly. The universe seemed to sense the importance of the child, a presence that drew attention even from the distant void. Days passed in quiet vigilance. Elenia spent most of her time watching the baby, speaking softly to him, telling stories of the humans he came from and the hope he carried. Rael patrolled the shuttle, scanning the sensors and plotting courses that would keep them hidden. They shared few words, but the bond between them was strengthened by necessity and trust. One evening, as stars streaked past the viewport, the baby cried out suddenly, a sound that echoed across the cabin. The cry was not of fear, but of urgency. Lights flickered and the shuttle trembled slightly. Rael rushed to the controls while Elenia held the child tightly, calming him. "It is happening again," she whispered. "He reacts to the machines just like before. I do not know how or why, but he feels them." Rael frowned. "It is unusual. The scanners show no external energy sources strong enough to trigger the shuttle's systems. Yet he changes the readings somehow." Elenia's gaze never left the child. She had begun to see patterns, subtle signs that humans were not just fragile beings as history had claimed. They carried something deeper, a resonance with the universe itself. By the time the shuttle approached the fringe worlds, they had discovered more anomalies. Doors opened without touch, small lights blinked in patterns that mirrored the baby's movements, and ancient systems, long abandoned, began to hum softly. Each sign deepened Elenia's resolve. The child was not only a survivor, he was a key to something far greater than anyone could yet understand. The fringe worlds themselves were a series of scattered stations and outposts, many abandoned or lightly patrolled. Here, Elenia hoped to find allies, those who had knowledge of lost species and ancient technologies. Their journey would not be easy, for even in these remote regions, whispers of humans had persisted for generations. Some might see the child as a threat, others as a tool to wield. When they landed on a secluded platform, they were greeted by a small delegation of scholars and engineers, descendants of civilizations that had once fought alongside humans. Their surprise at seeing the child was evident, but they did not recoil or shout. Instead, they bowed respectfully to the princess and whispered words of awe and curiosity. One scholar, a tall figure with pale skin and eyes that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light, stepped forward. "Princess Elenya," he said, "we have heard tales of humans surviving the Great Wars. We did not believe it possible. And yet here he is." Elenya held the baby closer. "He is all that remains. We need your help to protect him. The Empire may seek to control or harm him, but he belongs to no one. He is a child, and he must live." The scholar studied the child carefully, then nodded. "We will help. There are records, old technologies, relics that humans can awaken. If you bring him here, he may reveal what we have long forgotten." A sense of cautious hope filled the shuttle's cabin. For the first time in many cycles, Elenya allowed herself to believe that the child's life might be more than survival, that he could spark a new beginning. Yet danger was never far behind. Scouts reported glimpses of ships moving silently near the outskirts of the fringe worlds. They carried weapons and crews loyal to factions within the Empire, who saw the child as a threat or a prize. Elenya understood that their time here would be limited. They would need to act quickly, to find safety and knowledge before the pursuers could strike. That night, Elenya watched the stars again, the baby sleeping in her arms. She whispered to him stories of the humans he came from, of their courage and resilience. "One day," she said softly, "you will understand why you were spared. One day you will see the universe and know that even when it seemed lost, hope never died." The baby stirred as if responding to her words, and Elenya smiled faintly. Though the journey ahead was uncertain, she felt the weight of her sorrow lighten slightly. She was no longer alone, and the child, fragile yet extraordinary, gave her strength she had not felt in decades. Outside the window, the stars continued to shine, indifferent yet beautiful, holding secrets of distant worlds and lost civilizations. And in that quiet moment, Princess Elenya vowed that no matter the challenges, no matter the enemies or the shadows of the Empire, she would protect this child with her life. For in him rested the last spark of a people, the last hope of humanity, and perhaps the beginning of a future no one could yet imagine. The fringe world stretched before Princess Elenya like a scattered constellation of forgotten outposts, abandoned stations, and quiet moons. Their silence was deceptive, hiding dangers in the shadows, but it also offered the possibility of refuge. She guided the shuttle toward one of the larger platforms, a place where scholars and engineers had settled long ago to preserve knowledge that the galaxy had nearly lost. As they landed, the atmosphere hummed with tension. Elenya felt it in the walls, in the air, and most acutely in the baby's small body against her chest. He was quiet now, but she knew that his senses were sharper than anyone realized. He had already responded to technology in ways she could not explain, and she feared that enemies, those who had followed her through the void, might soon discover him. The scholars met them at the docking bay, their faces pale but respectful. They had heard stories of humans, but the reality of the child was more astonishing than any legend. Elenya handed him to one of the taller scholars, a gentlewoman named Lyra, who examined the baby with wonder but without fear. "He is remarkable," Lyra said softly. "Even in his sleep, I feel a connection to the systems here. He is not just a child, he is a signal, a key to what humanity once achieved." Elenya nodded, relief washing over her. "Then you understand why he must be protected. He is all that remains of his people. The Empire will not see him as a child, but as a weapon, a prize, or a threat." Lyra glanced at her. "We will help, but we must move quickly. Others are watching. Factions within the Empire have spies in the fringe worlds. They will not wait long to act." The princess's eyes hardened. "Then we act first. We cannot let them take him, not now, not ever." For several cycles, they worked quietly in the scholars' workshops, studying ancient records and devices long dormant. The baby responded to the technology around him in subtle ways, causing lights to flicker, machinery to hum, and even long dormant computers to awaken. The scholars watched in awe, realizing that humans had once held knowledge the galaxy had forgotten. Alenia stayed close to the child, speaking softly, telling him stories of the people he came from. They were brave, she said. Even when the world turned against them, they fought to survive. They were clever, strong, and full of hope. You are the last of them, and because of you, their story will continue. One evening, as the pale light of distant stars filtered through the windows, alarms sounded across the platform. Scouts had spotted ships approaching, familiar vessels marked with the insignia of the Empire. They had come for the child. Alenia's heart sank, but she did not hesitate. We cannot outrun them forever, she said. We must prepare. Every system here, every passage, every machine, we will use them to protect him. And if they try to take him, we will not let them succeed. The scholars worked quickly, reinforcing the platform's defenses. Shields were reactivated, automated turrets brought online, and traps set along the outer corridors. The baby resting in Alenia's arms seemed to sense the urgency, his small fingers curling around her necklace as if lending strength. That night, they gathered in a hidden chamber, reviewing strategies and routes of escape. Rael leaned close to the princess, his expression grave. They will come in force. This is no longer a skirmish. They intend to take him, by any means necessary. Alenia nodded, her face pale but determined. Then we meet them with courage. I will not let the last human perish under the Empire's walls. If we must fight, we will fight. If we must flee, we will flee. But he will live. As the ships drew closer, a strange phenomenon began to occur. The baby stirred and cooed softly, and lights across the platform began to pulse in patterns that mirrored his movements. Machines, long silent, hummed and shifted as if awakened by his presence. Even shields and defensive systems responded to him, activating and strengthening. Lyra's eyes widened. He is reacting to everything. The technology, the systems, even the defenses. He is more than a child, he is a force. Alenia held him tighter. I know, but he is still a baby, and I will protect him with my life. The first wave of enemy ships appeared, cutting through the darkness of space with precision. They fired warning shots, aiming to intimidate the scholars and the princess into surrender. But the platform was ready. Automated turrets fired, shields flared, and every defense system responded faster than the attackers anticipated. Inside the chamber, Alenia kept the child close, whispering stories of courage and hope. Your people never gave up, she said. Even now you carry that strength. Do not be afraid. We are here with you. Rael guided them to a secondary escape route, a series of tunnels and maintenance shafts that led to hidden shuttles. But even as they moved, more ships appeared, blocking conventional exits. It became clear that the child's abilities were their only hope. Alenia watched as the baby's small hands reached out, and systems across the platform responded instantly. Doors opened, lights shifted, and defensive systems focused on the intruders. It was as if the child, though unaware of his own power, controlled the very technology around him. The scholars stared in awe. He is not just a survivor, Lyra said. He is the key to what humans once achieved. We must ensure he lives. He may hold the future of the galaxy in his hands. Alenia's resolve hardened. Then we will protect him no matter the cost. The Empire may seek to claim him, but he belongs to no one. He is a child, and he will live. As the enemy ships closed in, the princess, Rael, and the scholars moved with precision, guiding the child through hidden passages, using the platform systems to slow their pursuers. The baby, still in her arms, seemed calm despite the chaos, as if sensing that the people around him were determined to keep him safe. Hours passed in a tense struggle. The enemy ships fired repeatedly, but the platform's defenses, influenced by the baby's presence, held strong. Each wave of attackers was met with unexpected resistance, forcing them to retreat temporarily. Finally, in the quiet hours of the night, the immediate threat passed. The enemy ships withdrew to regroup, leaving the fringe worlds temporarily safe. Alenia placed the child gently in a cradle prepared by the scholars, watching him sleep as relief washed over her. Lyra approached, her eyes still wide with wonder. He is extraordinary. I have never seen anything like it. The technology, the energy, it responds to him as if he is part of it. Alenia smiled faintly, exhaustion evident on her face. He is human, and humans are stronger than most believe. Even a child carries the courage, the resilience, and the hope of a species that refused to disappear. Rael stood beside her. We have won this battle, but the war is not over. The Empire will return. They will not rest until they have claimed him or destroyed us trying. We must be ready for what comes next. Elenya nodded, her eyes resting on the child. Then we prepare. We protect him. And we teach the galaxy that humanity, even in its smallest form, can endure. Outside, the stars shone quietly, indifferent to the struggles below. But within the fringe worlds, a fragile hope had been kindled. A child, the last of his kind, slept peacefully, unaware of the destiny that waited for him. And Princess Elenya, holding the sorrow and hope of 100 years in her heart, vowed that she would keep him safe no matter what challenges the universe placed before them. The horizon of the fringe worlds glimmered with faint light as Princess Elenya and her small group prepared for the final confrontation. The Empire's forces had regrouped after their earlier defeat, their ships now gathering like a storm beyond the edge of space. Reports from scouts indicated they intended to strike directly at the platform where the baby slept. Time had grown short, and Elenya knew there was no escape without facing them. She held the child close one last time, feeling the warmth of his small body against her chest. His soft breathing was steady, almost rhythmic, and for a moment the weight of sorrow and responsibility pressed heavily on her heart. "You are stronger than anyone realizes," she whispered. "Together we will face them. Together we will survive." Rael stood beside her, scanning the dark void with sharp eyes. "They outnumber us, Your Highness. But we are prepared, and he may tip the balance in ways they cannot imagine." Elenya nodded. "I know, he is human, and humans have a way of surviving, even when the odds are impossible." As the first wave of enemy ships entered the fringe worlds, the platform's defenses came alive. Turrets activated, shields shimmered, and automated drones moved with precise coordination. Yet it was not just the machines. The baby's presence seemed to resonate across the systems. Lights pulsed in patterns that synchronized with his small movements. Shields strengthened as his tiny fingers touched a panel, and energy flowed into dormant devices as though awakening from a long sleep. The enemy fleet fired, but each attack met unexpected resistance. Missiles were intercepted, laser beams diverted, and shields absorbed strikes that would have destroyed ordinary platforms. It was clear to Elenya and her allies that the child's connection to technology was extraordinary, a force the Empire could not understand. Inside the control room, the scholars watched in awe. "He is more than we imagined," Lyra whispered. "He is activating systems we thought were lost forever. Humanity has not disappeared, it has been hidden, waiting to be remembered." Elenya tightened her hold on the baby. "Then we protect him no matter what. He is not a weapon, not a prize. He is a child, and he is the future." The enemy fleet pressed forward, their determination unyielding. Ships moved in formation, aiming to breach the platform's defenses and capture the child. Yet every time they drew near, systems under the baby's subtle influence responded instantly. Doors sealed, shields flared, and energy fields surged to block their path. The Empire had expected resistance, but nothing had prepared them for the power of humanity, quiet yet unyielding. From within the baby's presence, small flickers of light moved along the corridors. Panels and ancient machines activated as if recognizing him, as if calling out to a forgotten heritage. The scholars realized what Elenya had long suspected. Humans had once been guardians of knowledge, carriers of ancient technologies designed to connect worlds. And now, in the hands of this child, that legacy was awakening. The first boarding team from the Empire's fleet attempted to breach the platform's outer defenses. They were met with resistance unlike any they had expected. Automated drones moved with uncanny precision, guided by the baby's subtle energy. Shields flared, and in moments the intruders were repelled, forced back into the void from which they came. Elenya watched, her heart pounding with hope and fear. "They will not take him," she whispered. "Not while I still draw breath." The battle escalated. The Empire sent wave after wave of ships, each stronger than the last. Yet each assault faltered. The child's presence seemed to anticipate their movements, directing energy and systems in ways no one could fully explain. Machines long silent roared to life. Weapons activated autonomously, and shields extended far beyond their designed range. Humanity's final spark was no longer hidden. It shone brightly, defying expectation and fear. In the midst of the chaos, Alenya realized that the child's power was not just technological. It inspired those around him, citizens who had followed her, soldiers who had pledged loyalty, and scholars who had long believed in lost knowledge found courage. Together they moved in coordination, their actions guided by instinct and determination, each one aware that they were protecting not just a child, but a legacy. The Empire's commanders grew desperate. They had assumed the child would be fragile, easily controlled. They had not expected him to command the very systems that surrounded him, nor had they anticipated the loyalty and courage of those protecting him. Their frustration grew and their attacks became reckless. Alenya took a deep breath, holding the baby closer. "You are not alone," she whispered. "You carry the strength of your people, and you will show the galaxy that humanity endures." As the final wave approached, the baby stirred. His small hands reached out and the platform systems responded instantly. Hidden fleets long dormant, buried deep within the fringe worlds, were activated. Ships that had lain silent for generations rose into formation. Their power synchronized with the child's subtle energy. Humanity, though nearly forgotten, was returning with quiet majesty. The Empire's fleet was taken aback. Ships meant to overwhelm were met with coordinated strength. Missiles were deflected, weapons neutralized, and boarding attempts thwarted. The child, innocent yet extraordinary, had become the spark that unified ancient technology and human courage. From the control room, Lyra looked at Alenya, eyes wide.
He is the key.
All along, humans were meant to protect this knowledge, to guide civilizations. And he is the first to awaken it. Alenya smiled faintly, tears glistening in her eyes. Then we will survive. And we will show the galaxy what it means to endure. The Empire's fleet, realizing their repeated attempts were futile, began to retreat. Ships scattered, some disabled by systems they could not control, others withdrawing to regroup. For the first time in a century, humanity's presence was undeniable, its legacy alive in a single child and those who chose to protect him. As silence returned to the fringe worlds, the baby slept peacefully, unaware of the immense power he had awakened. Alenya held him close, feeling the weight of sorrow, relief, and hope. The battle was won, but the journey had only begun. Humanity's story, nearly erased, was now ready to be told once more. Rael placed a hand on her shoulder. "They will come again," he said. "But now they know that humans are not weak. They know we will fight to protect what is ours." Alenya nodded. "And they will learn that strength comes not only from armies and weapons, but from courage, hope, and the will to survive. Humanity may have been small, but its spirit cannot be destroyed." The scholars began preparations to guide the child, to teach him and unlock the knowledge within him. Ancient databases, long forgotten, opened under his subtle influence. Machines and networks, silent for generations, hummed with new life. Humanity, though reduced to a single living representative, was awakening. Alenya looked out over the stars, holding the child close. "Your people will not be forgotten," she whispered. "And through you, their courage will guide the galaxy once more." The baby stirred again, opening his eyes, bright and alert. He looked at Alenya and then at Rael, as if sensing the promise of a future shaped by his presence. In that small, fragile being lay the weight of a people, the hope of the galaxy, and the spark of a new beginning. The princess knew the Empire would not forget this day. But she also knew that humanity, even in its smallest form, had returned to claim its place among the stars. She smiled through her tears, holding the baby close, and whispered once more, "After so long we have returned, and we will endure." The fringe worlds were quiet now, but alive with possibility. In the hands of one child, the legacy of a forgotten species had returned, and in the hearts of those who protected him, hope burned brighter than any star in the sky. Humanity's story was no longer over. It had only just begun.